My name is Joyce Raimondo, and I'm here at the Pollock-Krasner House and Study Center in East Hampton, New York. And we have a very special program today. Today's program is the art of giving. And of course, it is Giving Tuesday, and it's the holiday season, so it's a great time to remember how all of us are capable, probably, of giving more than we realize. Last month, we did a program called Remembering Lee, and we focused on Lee Krasner's legacy. And many people who knew Lee Krasner, Jackson Pollock's wife, spoke about Lee and highlighted their memories. And what came out of this talk for me was Lee's enormous generosity and kindness in setting up an endowment called the Pollock-Krasner Foundation that's active today to financially support artists, as well as creating the historic museum and house and study center under the auspices of Stony Brook University, and donating a large portion of the property of the outdoor land to the Nature Conservancy. So that got me thinking, what ways do artists contribute, not just through the production of their art, but also through other acts of service and generosity for the betterment of our community? And of course, immediately, who came to mind was April Gornik and Eric Fischl, who have contributed so much to Sag Harbor and other endeavors through their foundation. And Eric and April will speak today about their projects. And also Jonathon Glynn, who created Wings Over Haiti. He's also a painter. And he'll speak today about his endeavors to not only literally fly to Haiti to get medicine to people in need, but then extending that project to include the creation of a school. So I'm really, really happy and excited to hear from these artists today. So first up, we'll have Eric, then Jonathon, and if April can join, that would be great. And then Helen Harrison, our director, will also speak about how it actually came to pass that Lee created these various endowments and the museum here. So it's a really interesting story. So Eric, I'm going to read a short bio. And of course, I got this together quickly because we had a little change in our speakers. If you want to learn more about Eric and April's art, you can go to their websites, ericfischl.com and aprilgornik.com. So Eric Fischl is an internationally acclaimed American painter and sculptor. His artwork is represented in many distinguished museums throughout the world and has been featured in over 1,000 publications. He grew up in the suburbs of New York City and currently lives and works in Sag Harbor with his wife, April Gornik. April Gornik is a landscape painter. She has worked in numerous museums, among them the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York, and the Museum of Modern Art, and many other major public and private collections. She has shown extensively in one-person and group shows in the United States and abroad. So if you want to learn more, because their accomplishments are so wide-reaching, I do encourage you to visit their websites and also the website for the foundation. Okay, Eric, so we're so proud and pleased that you agreed to speak today, and we look forward to you telling us about your giving endeavors.
Thank you, Joyce, and hello, everybody. Hey, Jonathon, good to see you again. I guess I'm going to talk about the project for the church anecdotally, which is that in 2016, people, my wife and the Sag Harbor Partnership were trying to buy the Sag Harbor Cinema. And in the process of negotiations with it, the owner, the cinema burned down. After they ruled out arson, the imperative to buy the church increased tenfold because it was destroyed and therefore lost its historical designation, which means that a developer could come along and buy it for a shopping center or something like that. So in urgency, they began to raise money for the purchase price, which was $8 million, which is a lot of money for a burned out hole in the middle of Main Street. But they felt very strongly that the church was a significant part of the history of this town. And there were two things that struck me. One was that they raised $1 million fairly quickly from $50, $100, $500 donations, which sent a signal that there was a very broad base of people who believed that the cinema needed to be brought back to Sag Harbor. And then the other thing that impressed me was that at the top of this pyramid, it was not the developers, not the billionaires, not the people, the businesses that were making a lot of money in Sag Harbor that came in with large sums of money to develop the cinema. The big money came from people successful in their different creative endeavors. So it was filmmakers, it was visual artists, it was musicians, et cetera, that rushed in with large sums of money to help secure the purchase of Sag Harbor, and subsequently the Sag Harbor Cinema was rebuilt and is a functioning part of this town. What I saw in this was that this was a moment in which artists were coming forward to say, we're going to take control of the town, that we're going to live in the place we want to live in, not be used for gentrification and then pushed aside because it's unaffordable. And it gave me a sort of a sense that what we needed to do was to try to secure significant spaces in the town to anchor it as an art center. And it coincidentally, with my thinking, the Methodist church at the south end of town became available. This would be its fourth incarnation since the Methodist church left or deconsecrated it and went through a series of private owners who were trying to do different things that more or less were inappropriate to the fact that it historically had been a public building, and my feeling that it should remain one. So we were able to secure the church and turn it into an artist's residency, creativity space, an exhibition space, a performance space to bring a cultural component to the Sag Harbor Main Street. The thing about that was that it's on the same end of town as the Whalers Museum, the library, which had just undergone an incredible reconstruction, renovation, and is a world-class library. And so that part of town is anchored by cultural institutions. In the middle of town, you have the new cinema, which is an extraordinary programming and experiential place, as well as an iconic structure for Main Street. And then at the far end of town, the north end of town, you have Bay Street. So we've actually locked the town in as an arts district, and have begun trying to develop programs that will, be compelling, stimulating, will bring energy, trying to get younger artists, get artists that, would bring some kind of fresh blood into town, even though they can't afford to buy houses here at this point, but can be stimulating and, in other ways. And I think walk away with something as well that's significant to them. So that was the basic concept. And then further, that my feeling is that the arts have grown so far away from the culture, from the general population, for many reasons, that we're at a place where it's not a knee-jerk reaction to turn to the arts when things happen, such as 9/11, for example, something that is cataclysmic and profoundly impacting all our lives. The arts plays no part in helping to bring language, bring image, form, et cetera, to help us understand what just happened. And in so doing, to weave a tighter fabric for the culture. And so I'm thinking what we need to do is we need to find a way to bridge that gap. How do you do it? There's a sort of general visual illiteracy rampant in the culture these days, that people don't actually know what they're looking at or how to see what they're looking at. And so part of the focus is trying to find programs that will sort of help educate people as to how to see experience, to see emotion, to see the articulation of those things through form and language and performance, et cetera. And the other thing is to try to figure out ways to get artists to reach into deeper into the community themselves, and trying to connect what they're doing to the real lives of the people that are here. So we're trying to, sort of figure out what those programs would look like. I'm saying we're trying because we're, I think we opened our doors in April, and have done some things with great success, and we're learning, what we can do and what we can't do. And so it's a process, but in general, this is the idea behind the give back, I guess. And it thrills me that the people that have turned Sag Harbor into one of the most energized towns out here have been done by people who don't have great means, but have great willpower and desire to transform it into something that it has all the principles in the right place, I have to say. So I'm very excited to be a part of it. Everyone's on mute, so I don't know if anyone is talking or not.
Yes, you're muted.
Eric, thank you so much. And I'm wondering, with the name, the church, how you decided to keep that as a name, or what kind of meaning that has for you in April.
Well, first of all, when April and I bought the church, we were not thinking we were going to name it the church. But in fact, we had no name for it. And news travels very quickly in small towns, so people heard that we had bought the church. And people would come up to us and say, hey, I hear you bought the church. What are you going to do with the church? You know, how's the church going? You know, blah, blah, blah. And we realized very quickly that the church had a name, that you know, once something is nicknamed, you can't take it away. You can't choose your own nickname, and you can't take it away if that's it. So we kept it. It's caused some problems because those who are look at it and see a church and see the name the church are afraid to go in because they think it, you know, it's not their denomination, or, you know, whatever, or they're atheists and don't want to be bothered. And the other is people who are intimidated by art and art museums are afraid to go in because they think they have to buy something if they go in, and what, you know, so it's created a thing. We have to sort of figure out how to be welcoming in some, you know, overt way that people feel comfortable walking in the door. And this weekend we found one way, which is we had a makers fair, and all local artisans, and we had 1,000 people come through. And a lot of the people that came through the fair had never been in there before. So now they saw this magnificent building. They saw that it was user-friendly. And, you know, I think that over time, they'll get comfortable coming in and out as they wish, so.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Eric? Comments, ideas?
I would add, if I may, that the way that the church has been functioning, we are very excited about having large groups of people. The Makers Market was fantastically fun. The artists that we've had in residence, just a few of them, have been fantastic, and we're looking forward to welcoming more. Omicron permitting. But one of the great things for me is that the church, we hope to be open more and more all the time, so that people can use it from the community. They can come in, they can sit and they can dream, they can write, they can read, they can browse our library, which is just a little browsing library. But it's a place that I think has kept its spirituality, dare I throw that word out there, intact, in the sense that it still feels like this place that was built for aspiration, for contemplation, and we've let that stay, importantly. And I'm really hoping that it is a like kind of the institutional version of pandemic television, where those shows that you go to make you feel a really lot better. Like you should be able to walk into the church and feel a lot better about everything. And so far that really seems to be affecting people. Like they get it right away. It's a wonderful visceral reaction that we get from people, especially people who are coming in the first time. It's like, whoa, look at the rafters, and you know, it's all stripped down and it's all opened up, but it's all filled up with this other like integrity that the very bones of the place have. And I think it's, you know, besides the fact that it's sort of exciting to see, it's also calming. So I'm looking forward to people using it in all sorts of different ways that we haven't even anticipated.
Mm-hmm. Hi, April. I didn't realize you were on. It's so nice.
Hi, Joyce.
We really.
I've been here since 7 minutes after 4.
Oh, we really appreciate. I was so focused on listening. And I want to just, if you don't mind, I want to tell a little story. I went to the church to the opening, and it was free, by the way, everybody. And it was amazing. You know, we had so many people from the community there, and I was a little shy, but I wanted to introduce myself and see if you wanted to do the talk. And I was really impressed, because when I asked April, can you do this talk about your contribution to the community? I really thought this, I'm not trying to embarrass you or anything, but I was like, really, that was like the model of really what giving is about. immediately April said, yes, it has been so amazing how so many artists in the community contributed to, by sometimes donating art to be sold or auctioned or various things like that. And I was so impressed by that, because it's really about bringing people together, right?
I'm so impressed by that. I was totally serious, like with the cinema effort and all these things that I've been involved in. It's always artists that are first to say, like, yes, I'll give you a work of art. And I'm thinking, really? You did before and you're doing it again? This blows my mind. It's not easy to just give things away that are the source of your livelihood. And artists just rise to the occasion again and again and again. I think it's that essential empathetic component of art and how you want to reach people with it that makes you reach out to help people kind of instinctively as an artist. I mean, I'm theorizing, or, artists are just really nice, and the cinema was really built by people who get art and understand art and want art to survive. And the church, I hope, is going to continue that ambition and that experience for the community. That is something that you participate. I'm not just talking about artists giving art to make, to just keep something going, but I'm talking about just that kind of essential way of being able to make your art have impact. And I don't mean politically or, in any kind of didactic fashion necessarily, but that thing where your soul has substance. It's a really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And yay artists.
Yay artists. So, and also it's interesting, some of the artists might be saying, well, I don't have the resources for that, or, I'm not accomplished enough to do that, or, that kind of thing. And I was thinking about how the Springs community years ago had the mystery art sale. And I think both of you gave a small piece to that. And they had children exhibiting alongside well-known artists, and the art was auctioned and sold. And they raised $30,000. And a lot of the artists were not professional artists. They were as young as 5 years old. So, you don't have to have necessarily any special resources, although that's helpful. It really is the spirit of giving and the ingenuity of thinking, how can I give? So Edith Kelman has her hand raised. Edith, would you like to ask a question?
Sure. I'd like to say hi to April and to Eric. It's been a number of years, but I'm Sag Harbor born, and I'm in sort of an expat. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia now, and rarely get back up to my hometown of Sag Harbor. But I have to say, as a working artist and a local historian, both here and there on the East End and here in the Atlanta area and other zones, it does my heart such good to know, April, that you and Eric have mined the potential in my natal ground. Sag Harbor has such an extraordinary, international, diverse, creative history through so many generations, and for you to have the vision to bring so many aspects and dimensions together, in our contemporary time, and really make things work and open things up and invite the community to create and dream and live together in this remarkable place. So I just really want to thank you for doing it.
That's so incredibly nice of you to say. And Edith, we miss you up here. I'm sure that you're doing amazing work down there. You always are doing amazing work. And I remember our chats and stuff about Eastville and everything. And
Yes.
I just want to say, I mean, we're here at the good grace of the Pollock-Krasner house, and I just want to tip my biggest hat to them and the long-standing way that they've supported artists all over the East End, and particularly Springs, of course, but just by proximity. But your reach is so large, and just having the example of so many fantastic institutions like Pollock-Krasner, for me, even like the John Germain Library, they have the best programs. They have like Spanish for English speakers and English for Spanish speakers, and they just have such an amazing range of outreach. And it's local, but I also heard George Saunders lecture there. I mean, how amazing is that? And I love that idea of having like uber local and, you know, like having international, amazing, well-known people, all in the same context. I think that's the healthiest imaginable thing that an institution can offer a community for dimension anyway. But Edith, we miss you. When are you coming back for a visit?
Thank you. Things are complicated, but hopefully.
As usual. Yeah, I think the last
usual.
couple of years have been a little complicated.
Yeah, and we've got other complications on top of that. But I do have just a practical question. Has the church become a 501c3?
Yes. Yes, we are operating as the church. That's our DBA, our doing business as name. And our foundation name is called Edge and Center Inc. And it's a certified 501c3. We have an EIN number, but we process everything as the church. And as Eric said, like so perfectly, we couldn't call it anything else, because for 12 years it was sitting there with tarps and snow sneaking in through the windows and people moaning and saying, what's everything happened to the church? And everybody knew what the church was, ironically, since the old Whaler Church is such a big deal, et cetera, and other churches, the AME Zion Church, but that was always the church. So it has been a bit of a hurdle for us, but in a fun way. And people are all kind of grooving on it, I think, at this point. So.
I mean,
That spirit.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to thank you as well for your kind words and to say, as you pointed out, that Sag Harbor has an extraordinary legacy, extraordinary history of creative people. And, you know, part of our mission is to capture as well as remember what that history is. It's something that goes to, you know, the DNA level of the town itself, and I think that it's something that we need to remember. It goes for the entire East End as well, because it is an extraordinary area for the creative potential and creative power of its history. So I think that's part of our mission. And one statistic that I read a long time ago was that towns and cities that have a factory in the center of it more often than not fail. But a town that has an art center, a community center, a opera house, a culture center in it, always succeed. And so this is part of the, you know, what we're doing is trying to ensure that Sag Harbor stays alive and alive in a compelling way. So.
Well, thank you, Eric. Thank you, April. And thank you really for giving us these beautiful places to participate and visit. And I've been a very happy recipient. So thank you so much. Everybody, let's give April and Eric a Zoom round of applause.
Back at you.
And next up, Jonathon, you're spotlighted, and I'd like to introduce Jonathon Glynn. Jonathon Nash Glynn was born and raised in New Jersey. He now resides also in Sag Harbor. And Jonathon is a painter. He's exhibited widely across the country, and some of his solo shows, which I'm not going to read them all, you can visit his website to find out more. Pace Collection, Palazzetti, Sarah Roshna Gallery, Little John Smith Gallery, Carlin Gallery, New York, and many, many other institutions. And I'm so impressed by Jonathon. Not only is he an amazing artist, he also has a big heart. He founded Wings Over Haiti, a nonprofit dedicating to building schools in central Haiti. And Jonathon, we would love to hear more from you.
You know, I didn't really want to show my artwork, which is fine, but yeah, let's go with that one, the Haiti thing. I like the idea of, I mean, you'd be surprised. My feeling is that there's so many people in this community that do other things that are charitable. Sag Harbor is a remarkable place in the vicinity. I was really lucky. I had a pilot's license. I got it in my 50s. About 3 or 4 years into it, there was a Haitian earthquake, and the international jets couldn't get into Port-au-Prince because there was about more than 250,000 people died instantly. And then there was all these casualties. Jets couldn't get in. I'm just flying recreationally down to Florida as I had, and I experimented with flying in the Bahamas. I was ready to fly in the Caribbean, but I was getting bored with myself, really, and I wanted to do something worthwhile with the plane because I love to fly. So I'm going down there, and every 3.5 hours I have to stop for fuel, and I'm looking at the FBOs. I'm looking at what's going down in Haiti, and I'm thinking, you know, I can fly this plane down there, and I can deliver medical supplies and see what I can do. So when I got to Miami, I went and I got permission to get back into the country because they weren't allowing pilots down there. And I said, well, would you let me back in? They said, yes. So anyway, I flew down there. I found that basically there was no fuel or advisories for pilots. So I filled up that plane, my Cessna 172, mostly with fuel. So I was flying a bomb down to Haiti. But the reason why I did that is because there was no place to get fuel, and I figured I would land in a farm or somewhere if I couldn't make it to Jacmel, which they said was a dirt strip that was open to flying. Now, I have to remind you, and it also in line with April and Erica, the work you're doing now, I would never do this trip at my age right now again. So I was lucky to be able to fly in. I met people from Calvary Chapel, the men that are near my plane. They had all this money and they knew about needs. They were doing amputations without surgical saws and without anesthesia. And I saw this in the local schools where they set up makeshift hospitals. And so I spent the next almost 3 weeks just flying around, sleeping in the plane, and delivering morphine medical supplies to the rural areas. Our wonderful community caught this on Facebook because Heather Buchanan wrote a little story in her Kiss and Tell, and then people started following me on Facebook when it was in early stages. And the community, and I was only living here part-time then, even though I built my house 26 years ago out here, they were so supportive. There was fundraisers, and I mean, it was just amazing. Like I felt like immediately I had a community out here, and they were so interested and helpful. And I never did anything like this in my life. I mean, I've been an artist all my life. Giving back was something that I liked the idea, but I didn't really practically know how to do it too well. So then from 12 years ago on, with the community support, I decided that to start schools in Haiti would be the most sustainable way to help the nation. So we started one school that has over 225 kids. Now we're on our second school. We opened last year with 75 kids. Our goal is 400 kids. And we're getting there. We have a plan, and we're going to have 4 large buildings. We have 1 up already. Haiti is in a real mess. The fact that we feed and give medical attention to our kids is very helpful. And the satisfaction of helping these kids that go home and in many cases sleep on dirt floors or like 4 to a bed, they come in, they just love school, they never want to leave. And it's a delightful experience. And it's a great way for me personally to offset living and loving being in Sag Harbor with kind of a connection to unfortunately a world that's just filled with poverty, and it's not fair. So like, you know, as an article that was written about me said, I mean, it's a drop in the bucket, but at least it's a drop. So I kind of feel right now that, you know, I'm lucky to have this, what I do, and I appreciate it that other people appreciate it. Joyce, thank you so much. You know, so, and today is Giving Tuesday. So that was the whole idea. So I hope that, you know, we all, you know, can generate funds. I mean, April and Eric have also been very supportive. I want to make that very clear that, you know, it's such a sweet thing. I mean, I wish I could be more helpful to you guys, but I couldn't figure out how to do it, but you'll let me know. Anyway, that's my story. So.
Oh, Jonathon, thank you so much. And you know what? You know what, a drop in a bucket, it does ripple, right?
Oh.
Ripples, there's a ripple effect. So tell us a little bit, Jonathon, about your fundraising efforts with your benefit, and Donna Karen how does she participate, and some of the artists with the auction.
Well, Donna did, you know, April and Eric, as I told you. I mean, it's just, you know, we have prominent people in this community, and it's a giant step for a small organization like I have. Like we raised over $120,000 in one night. And that's enough to sustain the school, to build another building, you know, and then we set up our buddy program, which essentially is a way for us to pay for each student to get food and medical expenses, $1.50 a day, essentially what it is. And to also make it more sustainable. So our first school is run by Haitians, and I'm just more emeritus now. I don't really, I mean, I go there, but I watch it grow, and I'm kind of thrilled by it. But yeah, so it's a big deal. Donna's been really helpful. She does work down in Haiti. You know, I mean, and then Alec Baldwin was amazingly supportive, just in spirit. You know, I mean, what I find is that the longer I hang in here, you know, the more everybody wants to help each other, you know, so it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, but I think that, you know, it's the power of attraction, and people do want to get involved with positive things, and it definitely builds upon itself, you know, with a lot of effort, but then it has, you know, positive efforts kind of attract more growth, right? So next, Helen Harrison. And Jonathon, thank you so much. Really, you do inspire me. You know, you're one of these people, you make people want to be a better person. Really.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we all want to be better people.
All of you, but it's humbling, you know, when you see the efforts you're putting in. So thank you. Round of applause on Zoom for Jonathon Glynn. And any questions, anybody, before I forgot to take questions.
April has a question.
Well, I just, you know, there aren't that many people that when they see a disaster strike would get in a plane and fly to it and help people like that. I'm tearing up just thinking about that, because somebody who actually does that kind of work is indisputably the hero in any situation, as far as I'm concerned, because to actually take your time, your effort, your plane, your initiative, I mean, that in itself, I find, like, when you're trying to raise money for something, people want to see something, like they want to see a building go up, and they want to have that experience in a kind of a physical sense. And what you've done is so physical and so practical. And I want to suggest to you, like, tell people $1.50 a day would be how much money per year. And this is exactly what will happen to it. I love it when I'm giving to a charity and it's not a wonderful but amorphous thing like Save the Children. And like, I mean, I think that's why they started sending pictures to people, so they have some connection of like what child that they were supporting and stuff. But you have a track record, you've done so much. And I just want to also add that you've made me feel really old.
Wait a minute.
In spite of our age, We're still doing all this stuff.
No, I didn't include you.
I'm just teasing.
I was all self-reflective. No, you.
It's all good.
Oh,
Okay, thanks.
Jonathan, I'm curious with the natural disasters and the political disasters that have just happened down in Haiti. How is your program faring? Was it damaged? The schools damaged? Was the where are you at with it now?
Right, so the first school, Port-au-Prince, which is 20 miles out, it's in Croix-des-Bouquets. That could have been harmed, but the earthquake was much farther south and east, so that was fine. The big problem is that Haiti is in a very messy situation between the assassination of the president and then these roving gangs. It's a very dangerous place to go. So we started our second school, which is fine too. But I couldn't go down there I haven't been down in a year and a half, and we've still been building and everything. It's just way too dangerous. Our kids are being fed. I'm a little nervous, quite frankly, because we got a soccer field donated, and our contractor's saying that the prices are going up and they're not even sure if they can get all the resources in. I'm more concerned that food and medical supplies, our teachers are fine because they're local. I'm more concerned that the supply chain is going to get screwed up. It hasn't happened yet. And so I'm not going to worry about it right now, because just when you think it can't get worse in Haiti, it gets worse. So, I mean, but somehow the people are surviving. We have barbed wire and armed guards surrounding our schools. When you go in the schools, we have palm trees, basketball courts, bicycles, musical instruments. There's a sound of joy and laughter, and they never want to leave the school. So as long as we can keep that up, I mean, yes, I'm worried about, and I would love to get down there because I love being around the kids. The Haitian people are very difficult to deal with. Historically, it's a problem. Their culture is fantastic, but it's been hard on me, Eric, because I haven't been down there for a year and a half. So I'm raising money, we are getting stuff done, but I feel sort of disconnected, and people say, well, why should we help Haiti? Because it's like, there's so many things that can be done here, and you guys are right hands-on at home, and I definitely want to be involved with that. But, by not being able to go down there, it does stress me out a little and makes me a little disconnected. But that we keep the good news about the phones, and that we can keep in touch with our teachers, make sure they're showing up, and the kids, we can see how joyous and the situation is, because in 12 years that's changed a lot, that now anyone with a phone could be more active. That's helpful for a lot for me. But anyway, I don't know if I answered your question, but
No.
tried to. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't clear whether the second school had been finished building.
No, we have one building up. I think with some of the proceeds from last summer, we're going to build our second. We have a master plan with 4 buildings, and then we have this soccer field and recreational center. We have 7.5 acres, and we should have 400 kids within the next 2 years. I mean, there's an endless supply of kids that have no education, and in many cases, no food either. So, and that's that.
wow.
So,
Extraordinary.
Amazing.
Anyway, bravo to you.
Yeah.
thanks.
And any other questions for Jonathon? Jonathon, can you tell us the website?
Wingsoverhaiti.net.
Great. Okay, and now we are going to have Helen Harrison, our education director, who will speak about Lee Krasner and how it came to be the study center, the museum, and also which is a separate entity, the Pollock-Krasner Foundation.
Hi, Joyce, and hi, everybody, and thank you very much for doing this program. This is Giving Tuesday, of course, and anyone who would like to donate to the Pollock-Krasner House, please go to our website. But that's really not what I'm here for. I'm here to talk about Lee Krasner's legacy and how she is giving back to the art community that she was such an integral part of. And people think that we are them, that we give grants to artists, but in fact, she separated the museum from her foundation in her will. She did not want to run her own museum. What she really wanted to do with her money and her assets was to support living artists. One thing that I don't know how many people really know about Lee's background, but she and Jackson and virtually all of the artists who became the famous abstract expressionists were supported during the 1930s by a government program called the Federal Art Project and a couple of other related programs that were run by the federal government. And they actually employed artists as workers. They gave them a weekly paycheck to do their artwork in their own studios or in a communal studio that could be supplied for them. Their art materials were paid for. If they needed a model, that was paid for. In other words, all the expenses were taken care of, and they were given a weekly wage. So they were able to develop as artists without having to worry about commercial pressure. They didn't have to sell their work, it was prepaid. So Lee understood that the most valuable thing you can give an artist is time. Time to develop, time to think, time to grow creatively without having that pressure of having to live on your work, to sell your work, or have an outside job to support yourself. So in her will, she made provision to set up the Pollock-Krasner Foundation, which is headquartered in Manhattan. And all of her artwork, the artwork of Jackson's that she still owned at the time of her death, and her other assets were liquidated and put into a fund that gives grants around the world, actually. And it was established, it began its first grant making cycle in 1985. So it's 36 years old. And during that time, it has given nearly 5,000 grants to professional artists and organizations in 78 countries to the tune of over $82 million. So this is really, for many artists, a godsend. And just like the WPA, the Federal Art Project that employed Jackson and Lee in the 30s, the criteria are artistic merit and financial need. So in those days, back in the 30s, you had to be on relief. Well, it's not as stringent now, but you do have to have financial need and your work has to pass muster. So those are the two primary criteria. They also give emergency grants, like after Sandy and after 9/11, they gave grants to artists whose studios had been damaged or destroyed. So there are, from time to time, depending on the situation, as with Wings Over Haiti, the Pollock-Krasner Foundation flies in and tries to take care of some of the damage. But then they also have some special grants. There's one for lifetime achievement. There's another one for a particular, it's called the Pollock Prize for Creativity, which is a kind of recognition of artists whose work makes a difference to individuals and to society. So and they also give occasional grants to organizations that directly impact living artists, like the Vermont Studio Center, places like that. And they also fund publications and exhibitions that perpetuate Pollock and Krasner's legacy. And they have been very generous to us. So rather than asking for money, they give it away. And they have done amazing work around the world. I know a number of people who've gotten these grants, and for some of them, it has been really life-changing. So it's Lee's legacy to us to have understood what it meant for an artist to be given that grace, even if it's only temporary, just to give them not only the money, but the recognition, the understanding that what they're doing matters and deserves support. Oh, and for those of you out there who are artists and who would like to apply, the website is PKF as in Frank, .org, and all of the application information and the background information is on that website.
Thank you, Helen. Can you talk a little bit about the upcoming exhibit of the person who was affiliated with Lee when it became a museum, the house itself?
Yes, it's so interesting that the connections. In the 1960s, an artist named Alex Russo, who has just passed away, actually, he died yesterday on Sunday. He was teaching at the Corcoran Gallery in Washington, D.C., and one of his students was a young priest named Terrence Netter. And he brought Terry and other members of the class up here. He knew all the artists in the area, and he brought them up here to meet some of the artists and go to their studios. And one of the studios he brought him to was Lee Krasner's. And Terry, it was a very charming man, and he met Lee, and they were talking about her work. And her work was hanging in the house, none of Jackson's, only hers. And Terry looked at one of the paintings, and instead of telling her what he thought about the painting, he asked her what she thought about it. He said, "Is that one of yours?" And she said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, what do you think about that?" And she said, "It scares the shit out of me." And he said, "I like you. Can we go have dinner?" And that was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And years later, Terry became the director of the Stoller Center at Stony Brook University. And when he found out that Lee was looking for a home for her home, someplace that would care for it and turn it into the kind of museum and library that she envisioned, he convinced the president of the university that Stony Brook would be the right home for it. So that connection that was made back in 1965 or 66 paid off 25 years later.
Helen, when will the show open of his work at the house?
It'll be our reopening exhibition next summer. May 5th will be the opening day, and it will run through the end of July. So this is work of Terry's that will be work that it kind of relates to Lee in the sense that Lee was constantly revising her work. She would take earlier work and either cut it up or tear it up and make collages out of it, or sometimes paint over it so that there would be two paintings in one. And Terry did that too. So we're going to have examples of his work that show him revising earlier work.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Helen Harrison?
I just want to say, Helen, that the work you guys are doing is really exceptional. And, you know, just compliments to you for both the depth of scholarship and also the, you know, integrity of the programs you've been doing. I know.
Oh, thank you, Eric. I mean, I know we've had you talk here when your book came out, and it was a wonderful occasion. We used to do an annual thing with graduate students because we're affiliated with Stony Brook and the art department. But of course, for the last couple of years, we've had to do it on Zoom. But quite honestly, I think it's working out very well, and certainly from our point of view, because we don't have to drag you guys over here. And I mean, April, I think you're in Cleveland, right? So it's a much more flexible kind of a format, but it was just a delight to have you here because you just mesmerized the students. They fell in love, and I think they all ran out and bought the book.
That's what we want.
Yeah. Hawk those books.
But Helen, I mean, just look at what you're doing today, like offering these three other people besides the Pollock-Krasner house, which is—
Now, wait a minute, April, I take absolutely no credit for this. This is Joyce's idea. And I have to say, she has come up with such an amazing program. We had the one on disabilities in art. We had the wonderful indigenous art. And all of these ideas are hers. And she was the one who came to me last year when COVID was knocking us for a loop and said, well, why don't we do, you know, the schools are closed. I can't go out and do school programs. We can't bring the people here because it gets too crowded. Why don't I do it on Zoom? And I said, what's Zoom? So,
well, unless their ED would have said, I don't know, we'll just stick with what we have. But, you know,
well, that was the thing, though. We couldn't stick with what we had because we couldn't do what we normally do. And it's remarkable how we've learned to be flexible and learned to accommodate in ways that we obviously never would have if this disaster hadn't happened, but things that have actually turned out to be a benefit, that we can reach more people. They can join us from anywhere. These things can be recorded and then go on YouTube or on our website. And it just has a greater reach. And also, well, thanks to Joyce's remarkable imagination, we just have a wider range of programming.
Well, bravo. It's just fantastic.
Well, I want to come live to the church this weekend to see the Printaganza.
Oh, yes, everybody has to come to Printaganza. That's going to be so much fun. It'll be great.
And,
Wine and cheese from 4 to 6 on Saturday. That's always the thing that turns the key.
Right. April, can you tell us the website of the church, please?
Yes, indeed, the church sagharbor.org.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, the church sagharbor.org.
Great.
Important.
Very good. And Jonathan, can you tell us your website again?
Sure. wingsoverhaiti.net.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And the Pollock-Krasner website is pkhouse.org.
That's ours. And then the Pollock-Krasner
ahead.
Foundation is PKF as in Frank.org. And like Eric said about the church, the name can be a little problematic, that people don't quite get it. And there are people who think that we give the grant, but of course we don't. But then I can always refer them back to the foundation. And I think that Lee was very wise to find, or to ask her estate to find another entity to manage the museum. She didn't want to build her own shrine. She wanted her memory to be perpetuated by the generosity of her legacy. And I think that was a very wise thing for her to do. And also to make friends with Terry Netter, who made it possible for Stony Brook to actually own the place.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Helen, Eric, April, Jonathan. And
Thank you. I just want to thank you for all the work you've done and for inviting me to participate in this. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you, Joyce.
And I just came from the Midwest, April. I went there for Thanksgiving, so.
Well, hello from
everyone.
Marriott.
Tell them we say hello. So also, I do want to mention our upcoming program, somewhat related to this. You might say we do have a program on December 9th. It's called Picture the Divine. And we're going to look at how Pollock-Krasner and other modern artists picture divinity and spirituality in their art. So, and you can go to pkhouse.org to see the other free Zoom websites that we have available. The schedule will be posted in a couple of days. And everybody have a wonderful evening and a wonderful holiday season. And
thank you.
good night.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.